You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hot.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
So today we are going to be talking about something really fun and light after all that spookiness, that satanic panic and the Halloween horror. Not that wasn't fun, but just a little bit lighter. So we are looking at the movie Inside Out 2. If you're a fan of the first one, I think that came out in like 2013, 14. But the second one just came out where the main character, it's a cartoon, the main character, the girl, Riley, she is now older. And there's more emotions to deal with because this movie is very emotions heavy and looking at kind of how emotional development occurs.
Yeah.
Which is really great for us because as therapists, we really see a visual into that. And it feels to me, it always has felt very validating to kind of be like, oh, like this could be a great way for this new generation to understand this and be able to talk about this.
And to actually see it, to see what the emotions would look like is kind of cool.
And parents too that are watching or you know whoever is watching.
Yeah.
With it. I don't know if it's still at the theaters or it was just out in the theaters, but now it's available at this point in time, it's available for like renting or buying at, a particular price on like Amazon Prime. So I rented it from Amazon Prime and just kind of watched it all the way through. And I liked a lot of points about it. There were some things that, we were talking about. There's some things that we're probably going to say, hey, we were looking at this because we're obviously going to be kind of nitpicky about some of the emotional representations and stuff. But overall, what were your impressions of the movie?
So I watched it last night with my son, and it's funny because I quizzed him today. I'm like, what did you think of the movie? Because I enjoyed it, but there were some parts I actually fell asleep at one. Like,
really? Great, but so boring.
There was one part that I fell asleep in. So I don't know if it was because it was boring or because I was just tired because of the daylight savings or whatever.
That's true. We had the daylight savings too. So yeah, we could definitely give you a pass on that.
Okay. Not just that I'm old, but he said that he enjoyed the humor and that there was one part, of course we're going to do spoilers, but there was one part that like they are in this sarcasm chasm or whatever. And so he thought that was really funny. Like, there's one part they're talking to people like, you're so good at your job. And then they're like, so he thought that was so funny. I do think the movie was nice the way that it talked about anxiety and opened up like how that is an emotion that people can have. But I know we're going to talk about like the different ins and outs of it, but I did like it. I was going to say it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't like but I did like it. It was really good. I really like some of the characters I really like a lot. I love Sadness.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Good old Phyllis on the office. Yeah. I love her voice. It's so funny. I was watching it and my husband was around and he wasn't looking at the TV. Well, I mean, not like that would give him a clue anyways, but he was like, is that Phyllis talking? And I was like, yeah, it is. So it's just a very distinct voice, but it's a very like soothing voice. I like it.
I like how you're like not like looking at it would have given him a clue.
I know, like it wouldn't have like because it's not really.
Yeah, he would have recognized what she.
Yeah, I was like her being blue and everything in a cartoon. Yeah, but no, I agree. I really did enjoy it. I love the representation of emotions and how the patterns form in our brains and core memories, beliefs about ourselves, forming our sense of self. I really enjoy how they show that because I think it is such an abstract concept and it is something tough for people, not only kids going through, growing up and going through different developmental stages, but even for adults and everything to understand that and to really put that into its own picture. And I think it does a really great job of showing that in a very colorful, fun way. And also it clicks. It really just kind of, makes you feel like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the belief thing was one of my favorite visually too. I mean, like they made it like the little waterfalls, and it was just, especially the first time that joy brings sadness down. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, and yeah, that's so special to be able to drop it, drop the ball in, and then watch it rise up and just become a belief.
Yeah, like it's kind of magical, but your brain is kind of magical in that way. It is really interesting. Really, it's just a very pretty visualization. I like it. I do think so. This is, in case you don't know, I think most people know this even if they haven't watched the movie. This is the child Riley in the first Inside Out. Probably more than likely you watch this or you want to watch Inside Out too. But Riley is now going through she's just at the start of her teenage years. She's hitting puberty, and there's a lot more emotions that start to develop and have to work together. And we start to see new characters because there are new emotions. And we start to see the complexity of how they need to work together, which is, again, its own interesting way of being able to say, how do our emotions regulate and come together? And how do we incorporate all this stuff at this age in this wacky time of puberty, right? And Riley kind of, wakes up one day and all of a sudden there's new characters that sprout. Like there's envy, embarrassment, who's like kind of a big, silent, like gentle giant that kind of hides in his hoodie. And then anxiety and nostalgia kind of starts to come in, but they keep pushing nostalgia back. To be like, no, we'll use you for later, which I take issue with, actually. And I think you said you did.
Yeah, I did too. I think because the way in the movie they talk, it's like this little old lady who's just like your Nana or something, just going to knit you a scarf. But she keeps trying to come in. She's like, oh, yeah, I want to talk about this. And they're like, no, not now. But I do feel as though people can have nostalgia age 13 or younger, or it's not just for people after they graduate high school, because that's what they kept insinuating. Oh, no, this will be at the reunion, or this will be 20 years from now. But you can have nostalgia from, oh, wait a minute, these my friends are not going to be here with me anymore. They're going to, a different school, or we're going to be on a different team. I want to think about how awesome it has been the past season or past few seasons.
Yeah. And actually, even in the first Inside Out, Riley had to move. That was the big change in her life. She was kind of nostalgic. I mean, she was sad, but they represented it as kind of like more basic, like sad, but there was nostalgia in there, missing her old place where she used to live. And I think I remember being a very nostalgic young child. Like I had nostalgia. I missed when I moved from my house. I was probably like 12 years old when we had to move away to another place. And I just, I had such nostalgia about that house, even though I didn't like it when I was living there. I was just like, oh my gosh, I was a very nostalgic person. And I don't know, maybe not everyone is, but I do think there are certainly teenagers that experience that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially like it could be a nostalgia for traditions you have with your family, or friendships you've had, or, we always mention animals, but animals or different teachers you've had, like sometimes like when you're in middle school, you're nostalgic for being a elementary school, or when you're in high school, you remember middle school fondly, even though when you're in it, you're like, oh, so like there's different periods of our life that I think there are chances or places for nostalgia to sit and be.
I think that was probably just something, there's going to be some simplicities in this, right? It's a movie, it's Pixar, and they have to kind of draw a line somewhere and just make a definitive type of, we're just being nitpicky again as therapists. And just because we work with emotions, we work with the complexities day in and day out. So, but I really did like nostalgia, and I was like, let her bring some cookies.
Like, she's so cute. Yeah, she is very cute.
Yeah, let her say what she's got to say. Why suppress that? But that's an interesting point, actually, in this, like, kind of the pushing away of emotions, because we also see Joy starting to kind of want to, she was kind of the one that was in charge, which I have a little bit of an issue with as well. But whatever, we'll get to that, and I think we were kind of saying, like, why is Joy in charge? I don't know. Maybe, again, that was just kind of what Riley's set point was. I don't think that would have been my set point as a child. And I think there's more than just one emotion as a set point. But again, they have to demonstrate it and show this visually somehow. But I do think that Joy was trying to push away kind of some of these embarrassing moments, some of these awkward moments, and would like send them out and like, that little shoot thing, which was actually,
They're gone.
yeah. And that actually, at first I was like, hey, that's kind of like compartmentalizing, but it's also kind of repression. I think there has to be a good balance there. That was like my thought. I was like, that's cool, but oh wait. And then they went back into like that therapist.
Oh yeah.
mode,
What is the therapeutic or what is the psychological impact of doing this?
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, you had an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. Let's forget about it. Like, let's put it far away so we don't have to think about it.
Yeah. And obviously Joy comes to realize throughout the course of this that that's really not kind of how you can handle things. But I do think a lot of times that is how we get through this very awkward stage of not only puberty, but maybe transitions in general. We kind of tend to say, let's just put this over here. And hopefully we're able to kind of reincorporate that back. If not, maybe some issues start to come out and maybe that's when you go to therapy or maybe you start to just work on them, right? So it is kind of, I felt like it was realistic, but I was also like, no, don't do all that.
Yeah.
But like, oh yeah, I get it. So it's a little conflicted there.
Yeah. And also if you do that, it is going to come back. Like if you constantly as a human, like, okay, well, I'm going to just not think about it, put it in the back of my mind or just, that's uncomfortable. So I'm not going to feel it. It's going to show up later because you haven't worked on it. It's going to show up as something else. So, we don't always think like, okay, well, I need to deal with this right now. As therapists thinking this, we're like, okay, of course we want to deal with every emotion, but it is important to because it's going to show up some other time. You're going to feel that anger, anxiety, sadness in a different way if you're not dealing with whatever conversation or situation that happened that you didn't like.
For sure. And I think this is like that regulation of emotions that we, at different stages in our life, we have to recalibrate. And I think it's in puberty, you literally, they show Riley, she kind of wakes up one day and she is just real upset. She's talking about how she smells and she stinks and, kind of all these like awkward, embarrassing things that are new in puberty. And, and then she's kind of having mood swings. She's very much like getting mad at her mom and then really upset and sad. And like everything is just kind of chaotic in her mind because she's got these new sprouting emotions, these new things popping in. And it's tough for them all to kind of inside her mind. You show that, we see the visualization of who's going to run this ship. And Joy, of course, is like, well, it's me. And then slowly we start to see, that maybe that's not something that's actually kind of helping her out. And anxiety kind of starts to take front stage of kind of saying like,
Well, yeah. And anxiety at first you're like, oh yeah, she has good points because it's, well, if this happens, if we continue to do this, it's going to be like really socially, really bad for her. We do this if we do it. But then it's like, how can we, instead of having them all shipped off somewhere else so anxiety can just run the show, it's both Joy and anxiety had just such strong personalities. And it was just really hard for them both to say like, nope, we both can, we can have two emotions at once. But once they're both like, nope, you got to do it one way or the other way. And that's it.
Yeah. Like, and that's, I think that the complexity part, the involvement of emotions is you're starting to learn, oh, wait, I can actually be really mad at this person and I can still care about them. It doesn't have to be like all or nothing.
Yeah.
That I think maybe our emotions are a bit more simplistic leading up to that point. We start to realize there's a gray area that we actually probably usually have to be in a lot of the times.
Or I can be really scared or anxious, but I can also be doing something that I really enjoy and I'm having joy in it, but I can still have a lot of anxiety either before it or even during it.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of really tough for Joy because Joy had been running the ship, running Riley's mind. And then with anxiety kind of felt like, no, I can plan this out. I know I can control this. I know I can make this better because I think the turning point was, probably amongst some other things as well, but what we saw in the movie is Riley's two friends going to a different high school and Riley realizing she's going to be on her own. And so she starts to make these core beliefs and see, oh my gosh, I have to be really good at hockey. I have to have something where people will like me so that I won't be alone. And it starts to develop her core beliefs and grow into this new sense of self. That anxiety kind of rips out the old sense of self of I'm a good person. I do really good things. And then it's replaced with just all these other new core beliefs that become her new sense of self, and she's really doubting herself.
Yeah. Then she gets into this almost manic state.
Yeah.
This fury of like, I got to do this. I got to prove myself in this hockey world and try to make the team so I'll have friends. And so that becomes her full purpose. And that is anxiety producing. So on top of that, it just becomes a lot for this girl.
Yeah. And in the process of doing that, she starts to, like, her two best friends that she's going to like this ice hockey camp because she's really into ice hockey. She's really good at it. And her two best friends are also with her too. And it's with a lot of high schoolers that, she wants to make the team next year. And she kind of forsakes her friends and goes on another team during a scrimmage with kind of the girls that she would maybe make friends with next year that she hopes to. Because I think she's kind of, the anxiety is about self-preservation, I think, and is kind of saying, we need to have a plan because I am so scared. Now I don't have these two people.
Yeah.
And it comes out looking, I think, very selfish and heartless, but the anxiety is like telling her all these core things that are driving this behavior.
Like, these are true. That these, like, what she's feeling and what she's thinking while she's in this state of anxiety, it's her truth, even though it probably, if she was able to slow down her mind and just slow everything down, she might be able to see and breathe, but she's not at that stage, so she's just like, okay, I got to do this. I got to figure out what my future is. I got to, make sure I have my friends, my team. And it's just really hard. It's hard because, as therapists, we always say, like, anxiety is you're thinking in the future. You're there. It's, you're not here in the present, which they're showing very much how Riley is and what she's thinking, how she's behaving is very anxious and very much full of anxiety.
Yeah. And she's planning for things that she doesn't really have control over at this point. She kind of has to live in the moment and say, I can only do the best that I can do and have joy in that moment. Right. Which is what, eventually she or her brain or both, because it's kind of, she is her brain, kind of come to the realization to work together and to say, hey, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's everything in here. And I have to learn a way that works best for me to say, I can actually have joy in these moments and, maybe still be a little bit worried about some of these things, but I have to enjoy this the best that I can, just being with my friends and knowing that this may be the last time, we spend time on a hockey team together at this camp, and being able to just kind of find joy in that. And her brain is, after a lot of kind of hijinks type stuff, where all the original emotions get banished and then they have to find their way back, and all the banished emotions kind of come back and reincorporate into these beliefs, becoming kind of like a reincorporated sense of self, which is more balance, which is what we're always looking for in therapy. And I thought that part was really cool because it really did show, I don't know that this necessarily happens with a lot of people, but I think this is an example of someone who goes through this transition in a healthy manner. There's struggles, but I think this is actually very healthy, the way it balances out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, because we were kind of talking about this before, this may look very different for someone because Riley has a lot of support, like a lot from her parents. They are like her number one cheerleaders. They are absolutely believe in her. She comes from a very good home. She hasn't had a lot of traumas, save having to kind of move across the country. That was, traumatic for her, but nothing really in terms of, lasting trauma. And she is a very healthy individual. And this process can be really rough in terms of that. And I couldn't help but think, what about people who don't have that support or who don't develop a good sense of self? What does that look like, for this process?
Yeah.
What does that appear for their emotions coming in? Are they battling them? Are they throwing anger up in front, saying this has always helped me? Are they, what is that chaos? That may look very different. And obviously I know it's not literally like this, but I'm just trying to visualize it in the theme of Inside Out.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's just from my own personal experiences. I gotta say, most people probably don't grow up with that level of support all the time that Riley has. And also, like, she had a few advantages, I guess, being an only child. So they had, like a little bit more attention towards her. But I think a lot of, like, let's just say other people go at 13 or whatever, if they don't have that support, or the parents don't even recognize they're going through puberty, or sad that their friend is moving, or stressed about trying to get on a team or grades or whatever else might be going on, they may be struggling with it alone and maybe stuck in that anxiety or anger period for longer and having difficulty finding that joy in anything if you don't have outward support of your friend group or your family or school or anything. But it seemed like Riley had support in all avenues, where some other people might not have support in any, or they only have support in one or two.
Yeah. And definitely depending on, if you grew up in an environment where like anger was expressed a lot and that was an acceptable emotion, you could, kind of say, well, that's something I can use. That's what I know. Or maybe saying, I don't ever want to use that, and kind of pushing that away. And maybe that gets suppressed, and maybe not in a healthy way.
Yeah.
There can be, and obviously we think about this because this is what we deal with on a, regular basis, is that there usually are people who either are not aware of their emotions, or they don't know how to regulate their emotions, or something has become dysregulated. And so kind of digging around in there and seeing, like what happened or what has happened or where are some of these beliefs coming from is a big part of therapy, and just the questions that we ask. And I think a person who maybe doesn't have a good sense of self, or maybe didn't develop much of a sense of self, could fall to a destructive pattern of emotions coming at them in a way that, depending on who, what friend group they're talking to, who they're feeling like, this is what I need right now.
Yeah.
This just feels good. This gets something out. And then that can cause you to be looked at as like the bad kid, or it can cause you to be looked at as, I don't know, the angry kid, get you in trouble. And it can start these patterns that maybe are just literally starting from the fact that you weren't given this support. You don't have this sense of self that you can return to.
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of core to go back to, because that really isn't. I think we say not a lot of people because that's our experience. We maybe are always looking at people who don't have that, but I don't know what the statistics are in that, but I don't know if we could ever really know that. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who really don't, there's not a lot of emotional awareness. And that is what I think this movie brings, is kind of this understanding. It's very validating, I think, having worked with kids, but even just in general with therapy, to say, yeah, there's a lot to that. It's not, you're not just a bad kid, because you started out like this. It may build and it may build and it may build, and you may become a quote unquote bad adult, right? But there is something to this. You're not just a rotten seed, or, something like, because other people were given a stronger sense of self, it doesn't mean that they have been able to do anything better, or that they're a better person. Because I don't know about you, but I often will feel like, I hear from my clients that they feel very much ashamed that because they weren't given the support, they feel like they're not good enough, and that there's something inherently wrong with them, when really it's like, wow, that's another wound wounding you, because you weren't given this, and now you're being almost punished for this in this rhetoric.
Yeah, I see it a lot with clients when they're, especially you mentioned anger, when they're just in a relationship and maybe realizing that when they're having just a disagreement or an argument, that maybe their partner's argument style is not matching with theirs, because maybe they just saw anger from their family. So they feel as though, well, this is how you're supposed to argue, without realizing that every argument doesn't have to be like a blowout. It can be like, we can talk about this. Or other clients I've seen, like different stages of their child's life, they're remembering their childhood of like, oh, I wasn't really having the support, or I didn't really finish processing this at this stage. Like, for instance, like if they're at Riley's age, their child's at Riley's age, and then the client might be like, oh, I have some unfinished things, or I didn't really handle my emotions differently, or I didn't have the support. I want to figure out how to make sure I do this for my child. So I see that a lot.
Kind of like that arrested development. Like I've got to go back and do that work, which is tough when if you're a parent and you're trying to show this for your own child and also doing your own work, or if you are just doing that, you have to like almost reparent yourself.
Yeah.
In a way, because it really is not something that, maybe ever really progressed beyond a certain point, because there just wasn't any support. There wasn't any awareness of it. And you just kind of had to move on and do something else, focus on something else, like put it, like send it out to the chute, right? And kind of do that, because you didn't have the support.
Yeah. Because you still had to survive. So it's like, is this really, bad thing, or the scary things happening, or whatever that I can't really handle right now. I think, I'll just go back somewhere, and it might show up again years or decades later because it's unresolved. Or, like where Riley, again, it's like Riley was able to figure it out and sort it and process it. And it looked a little messy at first. And then it just, because people are probably like, what is happening to this girl? But then it just seemed like it was almost figured out, which that would be great if that happened for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think, it was presented, it is a Disney Pixar movie, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of has to be wrapped up and nicely. There is some messiness in there, but it's a healthy messiness, I think, for that age, and that, for puberty. But I also think this could, and maybe they'll come out with more inside outs. I was talking about that, with, going into college, like young adulthood, because that's a whole different set of emotions and things you have to incorporate in your brain, and processes and ways of working. And I don't know if they'd want to get that complex, because that would start to get into kind of some of the, more adult themes maybe. And also, when you're in your, I don't know if they go beyond that. I think they're kind of more geared towards, kind of teenager
kids
stuff. Yeah. I don't think they'd be like, all right, the 30s. Like, although that would be kind of great.
Oh my gosh. Debt. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you think about embarrassments kind of helping out sadness?
I liked it. I thought that was nice. And it was nice that he had his voice. And it was interesting, too, that you mentioned like helping out, too, because it seemed like each of them probably could have had like a buddy, too. Like there's like anxiety and fear seemed like they would have been kind of friends, and disgust and envy and sadness and, embarrassment. It's just, but it was really nice to see that. And I thought it actually made me smile when I was watching it.
Yeah, I really like that, how, sadness snuck in and embarrassment covered for her. And he had that empathy, because I'm sure as embarrassment, he's experienced like, oh man, I wouldn't want this to happen to anyone else. And you kind of see that opening up, some of those
let me help
branched out emotions, and like kind of how emotions work together. They kind of understand each other. They kind of run into each other. But yeah, it was, I think, overall a really great representation of a lot of these things. Of course, some of these things are just going to be simplified. I mean, it's not catering towards the therapists. It's catering to kids, and then parents watch it with their kids so they can talk about it. I think, right? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I talked about it with my son this morning, but I think it is supposed to open that communication, like have those questions answered. Not all questions answered, but just some things, and then also still have humor. It's like I mentioned earlier, like the sarcasm, chasm, whatever it was. Like that was really
sarcasm.
Funny.
Yeah, that is. I really thought that was a really nice play on words. So they were like, it's a sarcasm, like it's if you speak across it, it comes off on the other side as very sarcastic.
Yeah.
And that really is funny, because sometimes people can mistake.
Yeah.
Like there can be miscommunication and sarcasm, or people thinking you're being sarcastic when you're not.
Yeah. Especially like in text, or, and that's what they got. Like, with sarcasm, it's funny because my family is super sarcastic. Like my family I grew up with, and it, and as a kid, it's like, like you could perceive it as like, oh my gosh, are they mad at me? Or are they just being a jerk? Or are they trying to be funny? Like sometimes it was just like a little rough. So I know, like so sometimes I really try because I know I am sarcastic, but I try not to be so much because I know a lot and I've worked at places, especially in Florida. Sorry, Florida. But I've worked in like a lot of places in Florida where a lot of people did not get sarcasm. And
Not in my head. Very much
yeah,
so,
because
understand.
it was very difficult. And like, I think I offended a lot of people when I first moved to Florida because it was like, very much like people probably thought I was the biggest, meanest jerk. And I just thought I was funny. I thought I was just being hysterical, but no one thought I was, so it was just really, it's funny. So yeah. So now I still am, but I try not to, I try to read the room a little bit sometimes.
Right. That's because it's regional, I think. I think New England is a bit drier and does have more sarcasm. I think you'll meet some people who are more sarcastic around here. And yeah, I definitely recognize that when I lived in Florida. I felt like it was just more laid back and kind of happy, and people wouldn't understand when I would like, they would take it as negativity. And I was like, I'm just like actually being funny. I really have nothing invested in that.
I really don't care. What I'm saying is like, I really don't care. Like, that's just like, or I'm just trying to be funny. It's like, please don't report me to HR. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that, please. Yeah. There's definitely more of a, and of course, Florida, we're making a vast generalization, but like, I definitely did run into that with people who maybe, were just like laid back and just were kind of like very happy, people, and maybe just didn't really, have sarcasm, which is great. It's just that I think in New England, you definitely have, you definitely have at least a little bit of sarcasm.
Yeah. And I got it from both ends because I've told you, my mom was from the Bronx and my dad was from Boston. And then growing up in
some big sarcasm,
it's like, woo. Like, just like, it's
big energy sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, people understanding that and going through different life stages, you're going to try to meet new people and know if they're your people or not, right?
Yeah.
Are they, people who will understand your sarcasm, who will know you. And so that's very much, I think, kind of a theme in that movie as well, too.
Yeah.
Because Riley is headed to high school with new people.
Yeah. And figuring out how, like if they get your, and that was interesting too in the locker room. Like, so they're all like, Riley and her two friends are all like giggling and being all silly and dopey. And, it's like reading the room too. Because you want to be silly and goofy, but oh, wait a minute, everyone else is very serious and they're trying to be mature. And you're being
they're high schoolers.
Yeah, it's weird. It's different. You can still have fun and be silly, but it's like not right there. Not that.
Right, yeah. Now when the coach is trying to talk and have a talk. Yeah, because they realize, this is a more serious team.
Yeah.
But you'll have to watch it if you have no idea what we're talking about. But we're basically just saying the things that we think are really kind of interesting, pointing out the different stages of development and just the things that you learn at different points. I think typically probably just a very Western perspective. I don't know why I'm pointing that out in case there's anybody non-Western listening to this. I don't know. But yeah, so I really think it is a great movie. I think it provides good talking points for a therapist, for somebody who's around that age, or just in general, younger kids or parents, things like that. But I also think personally, I found myself really relating to like having this great visualization of the core beliefs and how that really it branches out to become your sense of self. And it just really stuck with me. I really loved that.
Yeah. That was my favorite part too. It's just like the visualization of it. And then I started thinking of how many things in my life personally have happened, like with family or friends or school or jobs or anything, or, relationships, marriage, that have gone into that little river and become, belief.
Yeah, for sure. And also how, at the end, it's basically like, it became its own thing and Riley is in control of that, right? Like she has her own sense of self. And I think that really says something about what we feel we can do to help ourselves and to call up particular parts of ourselves, know that we are not defined by one, awkward moment where we tripped and fell in front of the whole school or, whatever
Yeah.
your kind of nightmare core memory is, or if you have a few of them like me.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah. And to say that's not who you are.
Mhm.
It's not who you are as a person. But
Yeah.
okay, these things happened and,
Yeah.
how
Move
are we
on.
going to
Yeah.
move forward in it? Yeah. But yeah, it was a great movie. We liked it. Check it out. It's not quite free yet.
Oh, well,
but
I have, well, if you have Disney Plus, I have Disney Plus. So,
Oh, okay.
but again, Disney Plus isn't free. So I
Yeah,
guess
if you have, if you're, but I'm sure you probably already seen it if you have Disney Plus, right? But it is on Amazon Prime. You can rent it for, I think it was like $5.99. You can buy it for $20 or something like that.
It'd probably be fun to watch both of them
up
back.
to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would probably be fun to watch both of them back to back, and then you can listen to the podcast. We'll have our episodes of little self promotion of Inside Out 1 and now Inside Out 2. You can do that to see if it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could go back and watch both of them. Yeah, because we really like this because it is very relevant towards emotions and feelings and a visual representation. We don't have very much of that, so we're gonna really, focus on that when it comes out.
And it is nice. I know, like it's like I ebbed and flowed with my thoughts, but I do feel like it's really great because it gives you a talking point too. It brings up the conversation of mental health, and it brings up the conversation of what anxiety is and what you're feeling during those different stages. And I think it's great. I think it is good. I mean, there were some parts I was like, oh, but there's other parts I just really liked.
Yeah, for sure. So recap, let nostalgia stay.
Yes, that was the part. Like, come on, people.
Yeah. Cool. Whatever. She's my lady.
Yeah. She's one of your golden girls.
Oh yeah, I'd be hanging out with her in a rocking chair eating the cookies. Yeah. And joy and anxiety can both kind of, along with all the other emotions, can, help to form who we are, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be so many more if they continue with these inside outs, or as you can imagine, you probably know if you're an adult listening to this, how many more develop.
Yeah.
And incorporate in, mesh together, and there's just lots of changes. But yeah, we think it's a great way of representing this and good for talking points for our field. So we hope you get to watch it because it was pretty great. Yeah, whichever way you can. And we are not affiliated with this. We just love watching movies and talking about them. We are the Siskel and Ebert, as Erin's husband says.
Yes, Siskel and Ebert, or that's our new name.
We will decide who is Siskel and who is Ebert next time. Yeah. We'll have to look them up because I always knew their names, but I never really knew them individually.
I don't think either are both lookers, so I don't know. Like that, we want to compare ourselves, but we'll see. We'll let you know. Stay tuned.
I think
stay tuned to find out.
We'll find out
side by side.
Yeah. We hope you liked this discussion on Inside Out too. Go see it if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wicked Psychotherapists. On Facebook, we are the Wicked Psychotherapists. Subscribe and follow wherever you currently listen to podcasts. We are everywhere. And write us a review. It helps us out a lot. Mm-hmm. We love that.
And
5 stars.
Yep. And thank you for the fan mail that we get. So we do read those too. Those are fun.
Love it. Yes. Keep them coming. And anything else you want to, any suggestions, any fan mail, anything you just want to talk to us about, we are open. Mm-hmm. Let us know. We like talking with you guys. You guys are fun. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. Okay. Well, have a good week. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.